ramping amongst our youth. Domestic violence is on the increase. Our streets are smelling of skunk. Our streets are polluted with drugs. Your son doesn't have a job, but he drives a 20,000 pound car. The daughter doesn't have any source of income, but she's got the latest handbag and designer clothing. Brother is stoned out of his head, and because of the state that he's in, he doesn't even know and realize that his father's passed away. Today we find some individuals who are trying to make cannabis halal as well. These drug dealers are the scum of the earth. They are the scum of this earth, and their janazah shouldn't be read. The challenges and problems that we as Muslims face in the 21st century are different from the challenges and problems that our forefathers faced when they arrived in this country. From every angle and direction, the faith and the iman and belief of khas taur our Naujawan Nasl is being challenged and attacked. We see that over the last several years, an increase and rise in atheism and Muslims leaving Islam altogether. 2018 MCB statistics, Muslim Council of Britain, where they mentioned that 10,000 Muslims left Islam in that year. We find domestic violence on the increase in our homes. And we're not just talking physical violence, also verbal as well, where husband will try to be dominant and ghalib over the wife. Or ajkal 21st century ka door hai na, wife will be dominant or try to be dominant over the husband as well. Everything has been turned on its head. So domestic violence is on the increase. Aur ye yaad rakho, Islam outright condemns domestic violence. Nabi Islam never raised his hand to any of his azwaj mutahharat. Nabi Islam never struck any of his children, never raised his hands to even his own ghulams and his slaves and khuddam. Islam outright condemns domestic violence, and it has no place in Islam. Nearly 15% of the prison population in this country is of Muslims from an Asian background. The biggest issue and problem in terms of social illnesses, wherever there is a large concentration of Muslim youth in different towns and cities up and down the country, we find that drugs, huge issue and problem in our communities. Individuals who are selling drugs and those who are taking drugs. My address to those who are taking drugs, understand and know that you need guidance and support. Drugs is not the solution to your issues and problems. If you're going through difficulties and hardships, then the solution to your difficulties, your hardships, isn't that you get high or nashe mein aa jao. Rather, the solution is in the dhikr of Allah Almighty Jalla wa'ala. The solution is in the tilawat of the Quran. The solution is in the 5 daily prayers. The solution to your problems and issues is sending durood and salawat upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. और 40 दिन वास्ते try करो ना. Sufiya Arifin क्या कहने? That if you want to get rid of a bad habit, stay away from that bad habit for how many days? 40 days. 40 days is the benchmark. Similarly, if you want to establish a good habit, a good practice, then become adi, become habitual for 40 days. 40 days is the benchmark. Stay away from that thing for 40 days and you will see how there is a change within you and how the noor of Allah Almighty will begin to enter your heart. Today we find youngsters who normalize this. Those who smoke weed and bud and marijuana or whatever, skunk, that's the one. These low-level drugs. Drug is drug, yaar. And today we find some individuals who are trying to make cannabis halal as well. Trying to normalize these things. Not knowing that if you take these substances, these illegal substances, then you're putting your iman at risk. You're putting your mind at risk. And sadly, unfortunately, we've seen with our own eyes where brother is stoned out of his head, and because of the state that he's in, he doesn't even know and realize that his father's passed away. Na ghusl kar sakna hai, na is tariqe nal janaze vich sharik ho sakna. He doesn't even know that his father's being buried. Why? Because he's stoned out of his head. Is halat vichan. Aur ye bhi sharm ki baat hai na. Father knows that son doesn't have any source of income, but he drives a 20,000 pound car. Mother knows the daughter doesn't have any source of income, but she's got the latest handbag and designer clothing. Now moving on to those who actually deal. Walidain janne lekin khamosh rehne. Kyun kuch na kuch milna na. जिले सवेला बुन अच्छने ना कुछ इस तरीके नाल फायरप्लेस पर होना ना लफाफा जो कुछ ही है शर्म करो that you're putting the iman of your children at risk. These drug dealers, they are the scum of the earth. They are the scum of this earth. They are murderers. They are individuals who are ruining the lives of others, destroying families. Fear Allah Almighty Jalla wa Ala. Make a U-turn. Make a U-turn before it's too late. Maut se pehle toba karo bas. Today we are here, tomorrow we are gone. And when we are 6 feet under, your boys are not going to help you. When you are 6 feet under, the people whose lives you have destroyed, they will curse you. And on the day of Qiyamah, what face will we show to Allah Almighty and His Rasool Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Aur ye sharam ka maqam hai na, that today we find youngsters, 2 cars parked up next to one another. Obviously they're not exchanging Maltesers, are they? They're not exchanging Smarties and Milky Bars. But diari, ek wajah, do wajah, in our streets, where our mothers are, where our sisters are, where our wives are, sharam karo. And this is why Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said what? That this is what the previous Anbiya used to say to their followers, that if you have no shame, then do as you wish and please. Ye koi sharam nahi na, ye koi ghairat nahi na. If you have no shame, then do as you wish and please. We find that our streets are smelling of skunk. Our streets are polluted with drugs. Youngsters who are involved in this, you have an opportunity to turn back to Allah Almighty Jalla wa Ala. Whether you're buying, whether you're selling. Oh believers, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, innamal khamru wal maisiru wal ansabu wal azlam ridsum min amali shaitan. These are all acts from amongst the filthy, impure acts of the shaitan. Or innahu lakum aduwwun mubin. Shaitan is an open enemy for you. Ye 4 din ki zindagi hai na. So change yourselves before it's too late. Ask Allah Almighty for forgiveness. Ask forgiveness of those people whose lives you have ruined before it's too late. And I don't backtrack for a moment on the words that I've said, that these drug dealers are the scum of the earth. These drug dealers are murderers, and their janazah shouldn't be read. We find that in our communities we glorify such individuals. We fear such individuals. Oh, he's a made man. Made what? What has he made? Well, is he going to take his wealth with him into the grave? Is he going to take his cars with him into the grave? Bare-bare badshah, bare-bare is tariqe naal kings and rulers have come in the past. Look at the examples that Allah mentions in the Quran of Fir'aun and Ad. Look at the examples of Samud and Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab. You think that you can walk on the street like 10 men and no one can touch you? But don't forget that maut will come to you. And when maut will come to you, then one day, as I mentioned, you will have to present yourself in the court of Allah Almighty. The kera muh salsa, kera chehra salsa. Aur ajkal sirf ek hi currency hai na, paisa, paisa, paisa. Doesn't matter how we get it. Halal or haram ki pehchan hi koni. And this is a topic within itself. Lawful and unlawful, we're not willing to make the distinction. Bas alladhi jama'a malan wa addada. Somebody very profoundly said to me once, Buzurg sa na, the Buzurgan vich bari hikmat honi hai. He said to me once, Imam sahab, the kafan doesn't have pockets. Kafan doesn't have pockets. The shroud doesn't have pockets, meaning you don't take anything with you. Mere pocket vich bank card hai ji paise in. You don't take anything with you into the grave except your aqidah and your a'mal salihah. Walidain, once again I address you that if you know that your son is dealing, if you know that your son doesn't have a job but he drives a 20,000 pound car, aapki zimmedari hai, aapki responsibility hai that you deal with your son. He's destroying the lives of so many individuals. To say ghairat koni, sharam koni, that you should at least address this issue with your son. Chalo, ye dunya mein to sani bari izzat hai na. Log kane Chaudhary sahab ta Raja sahab. लेकिन क़यामत के दिन पर दूध का दूध, पानी का पानी. فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَى وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَى. This is a plea, this is a request that change your ways before it's too late. Do din ki zindagi hai bas. If you're not praying, start praying. Change your ways from today. Ask Allah for forgiveness. It takes literally 2 minutes. And you know what the beauty is? That when you ask Allah Almighty for forgiveness from the heart, sincerely, with this ikhlas, then the slate is wiped clean. You're like a newborn baby. And then Allah Almighty will give you the opportunity to turn back to Him in different ways. Masjid is open. Take the opportunity. Read your 5 daily prayers. Ba jamaat. Bachya ki is tariqe naal targheeb diyo. Koshish karo. Mehnat karo. Kya labna end vich? Kya anjam hai? You get nothing from the dunya. Dunya swallows you and spits you back out. But when you turn your direction and your way in life towards Al-Madinatul Munawwara, when your rukh is turned towards Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, dayar-e ishq mein apna maqam paida kar. Iqbal says what? Drown yourselves in the ishq and ghulami of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you will see how Allah honors you in the dunya, how Allah will honor you in the grave, and how Allah will honor you on the day of Qiyamah as well. Subhanallah. Bas, enough is enough. Turn back to Allah Almighty Jalla wa Ala before it's too late, and khud halal kamao or bachya ki bhi khwa do. Don't underestimate this, that our children are a product of what we feed them. Lekin gal kya hai? Tarbiyat ki. Tarbiyat ka asar hai na. Baba Fariduddin Gan Shakar rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh, their mother's name was Sayyida Bibi Kulsoom salamullah alayha. When Baba Fariduddin Gan Shakar rahmatullahi alayh left their home to go and study the deen, 20 years they studied the deen. When they returned home, they said to their mother that Ammi Jan, during this period of how many years? 20 years, I've not done qaza of a single tahajjud salah. And when son said this to the mother responded by saying that, Beta, ye tera kamal nahi, ye mera kamal hai. Ye tera kamal nahi, ye mera kamal hai. Son asked the mother, what do you mean by this? Jawab mein sabak hai, aakhri jumla hai. Mother said to the son, that Beta, when I used to feed you, when I used to give you milk, I used to be in the halat of wudu. When you have mothers like this, then you have sons like Baba Fariduddin Gan Shakar rahmatullah alayh. Remember, a famous narration, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that this ummah is jasade wahid. One body. This nation, this ummah is one body. If any part of this body is affected, then the whole body suffers and is in pain. And if the arm is affected, if the head is affected, if the leg is affected, then the whole body is in pain. Ye na ho jaji, my son is fine, my daughter is fine. No. You should have this pain. As a gal karne about liberating Palestine, helping Indian occupied Kashmiris who have been in lockdown for the last 2 years, Uyghur Muslims in China who are suffering. Asa soche bas ek status लाई होने Facebook पर, WhatsApp पर इस तरीके नाल एक status लाई होने तो बस ऐसा ना कम पूरा हो गया नहीं. If you want to really help the brothers and sisters who are suffering in Palestine, first help yourself and become that person who is regular in the Fajr Salah. ये कुरान का फैसला है, ये जज्बात की बात नहीं. Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma bi qawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. ये आयत कुरान है ना, that Allah Almighty says that He will not change the state of a nation until those people begin to change themselves.